My name is IRMAM, and today I'm going to share a little bit more with you about my organizing system and what I use to help me stay on track, to be super focused in the activity that matters the most when it comes to building a successful business. I will start off right from the beginning and say this: that is not my nature. A lot of people, when they look at my life today, after being in business for many years, they oftentimes will say, "You're so successful, you're so organized. I wish I was more like you." And I'm gonna just say this, I had to learn it. It is not something that came natural to me, and for sure not something that I've done all of my life. So if you're sitting there and watching this today and you're like absolutely not one that has written things down or planned things or had done any kind of time blocking, and it seems like a super foreign concept to you or maybe even a little scary, I want you to know that you can absolutely do this, and you can learn this because I'm a product of actually taking the challenge and learning it. The first thing that I had to do was find what works for me. And that's really important for you to hear, because just because something works for me, it may not work for you, and maybe you can take a little bit of tips and tricks from what I'm gonna share with you. But really find what works for you, what really connects with your brain and your heart. For me, paper and pens really do that, and color and seeing things written out really makes a big difference than keeping it in a computer version. So I had to find the perfect planner, and I went through, I don't want to say hundreds because that is definitely not true, but I went through probably 20, 30 planners over the years to find the one that I really feel like can actually capture what I'm trying to do. And I found a planner that's probably the nearest to perfect that I can that I would say I have found, and that is the Panda Planner. Okay, best way to get it is right on their website. I've had people try to find it on Amazon and other places, but just go to pandaplanner.com and you'll find it. I always buy the bigger size, and I buy the version that is not actually dated or marked, so you can get it at any time of the year. It can be May, it can be July, and you can start right then and there. You don't have to wait for a new year, which is super, super important. When should you get started? When it makes sense to you, right? So the first thing that I will go through is how I plan my year, because I think it's incredibly important to actually have a vision for the year and write out all your goals and make sure that you actually block out the things that are going to happen throughout the year so they don't ever become gotchas, right? Like birthdays and family trips or anniversaries, things that you should actually have already planned for, but in the day-to-day we forget about it. So what I do is I also go on Amazon and I buy these little like January through December tabs, and you can see them right there, just again to keep it very organized. So the first thing I do is I go through each month, and I'm just gonna kind of go through here and show you what you see on my planner. I basically go through all of my trips that I have coming up. Really important if you're a traveler, if you have work trips, conventions, really important to start marking them off. And I'm a big fan of color. So anytime you see pink in my planner, that's personal time, okay? When you see green, that has to do with my business, right? So it's a business trip or a convention or maybe a trip that I earned, so I can see right off where that breakdown is. You can see that February is like super busy, right? I'm going to Germany, Belgium for a family get together and my mom's birthday. And then I have the trip coming up here with my business. So again, that's in green, then going into March. And you can also see that for me personally, I have learned the importance of resting and actually scheduled rest, right? So we keep the Shabbat as a family, we don't work on Sabbath, and literally for the whole year, I go through and I mark those days off so I'm not even tempted to schedule anything in there. So again, I go through it. Here's the Alliance trip that we're gonna be on. Also, we as a family observe the feasts of the Bible. So all of the feasts like Passover and unleavened bread, all of that is already in here. And so I'm just gonna kind of go through this really quickly. Here's another trip coming up. And what that does when something comes up, okay, so let's say You have someone that wants to somebody's asking you to come and speak for them in 3 months, right? And they're giving you some dates, and it's so easy to say, yeah, I'll absolutely do that, right? Without looking at our planner, because we don't typically think that far in advance when it comes to scheduled events. So right out of the gate, I will always go to my monthly spread and I will look at it, and I can very quickly say, yes, that's gonna work, or no, that's not going to work. And then as other things are getting scheduled, I will make sure to put those in there. Okay, so that is for the monthly spread. You wanna start there. You wanna make sure you mark everything out. And I will always tell you, lead with the pink, okay? Lead with what is most important to you and your family. Don't make your family fill in the empty spots, because you will often find yourself so busy and working day in and day out. And that happened to me years and years ago when I was just starting out in business. I did the business to provide an income for my family and because I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but I got so busy in my business that my kids almost became a burden. And so making sure that you actually plan your time for your family is going to be important. What that also will help you do is really stay connected to your business when you're working, and when you have your family time and your rest time, you can actually focus on that. And you're gonna get rid of that guilt feeling, right? And you probably have experienced that. Guilty when you're with your family because you're not working. Guilty when you're working because you're not with your family, and it's all kind of a mess, and oftentimes that leads to being unproductive. So that's my suggestion, lead with your family first. The next thing that I do then is I go through and mark off each month. Again, I have my little tabs, so you're gonna see that again here on the side, all my tabs, and I mark off the entire year. What I do then from my monthly, I transfer into the year. Okay, so again, let's just kind of go to April, right? I just remember I have a trip coming up in April. So as you can see, I went ahead and blocked out the trip that I have for my business. It's an incentive trip I earned, but I don't want to get to March and April and start scheduling, because I used to do that and then realize, oh my gosh, that's actually when I'm gone. So by doing that in the year in advance, you're going to actually save yourself from double booking and having to play catch up, okay? So we have covered the month, the year, now we're going into the month. And then of course, how do I use this planner? And please don't get overwhelmed when you see this, okay? Because I had somebody tell me when I was coaching this, your planner is intimidating. And I'm like, yes, I can absolutely see that if you're just looking at it already worked out. This is last week, but I'm gonna go through and explain exactly what I do and why this works so well. Also, let me backtrack a little bit here. I don't think there is a planner unless you design it that is going to fit exactly what you need it for, okay? I'm going to go to just a plain page right here. And I'm gonna just kind of show you what this planner actually looks like, right? In the top, it shows here, I'm grateful for. So this is really a good habit to start writing out your gratitudes. Well, for me personally, I'm a little bit past that. I actually journal every single morning, and it's a lot more than these three little lines. But for someone that has never ever done that, this is a great place to start. But I'm not gonna leave this blank, because I'm gonna make every piece of this planner work exactly the way I need it. So if that's not something that you need to be focusing on, use it for something else, and I'm going to show you what I use it for. I'm excited about, so writing out focus points in there as well. And then you have your priorities, and the other reason I love Panda Planner over several others is because it starts at 7 a.m., not at 9. There's some planners that actually start at 9 a.m. I don't know why, but it starts at 7 and it goes all the way to 9. And there's a lot of planners that end at 5 or 6 p.m. Again, doesn't work for what I do. That's really powerful. And then it says today's wins and how I will improve. Again, I currently use these boxes for something different, but I'm gonna show you exactly what I use them for, okay? Okay, so let's go back to my actual what I do and how I utilize this for my contacts, scheduling, staying on task, and reaching my goals. The first thing that I do, and because this is such a huge focus for me this year, I kind of slacked off the last couple years, was getting back to my morning routine. It's really important to me, and if I don't write it down, if I don't make it a priority, you probably know this already, it's not going to happen. One of my big goals, and I'm going to get a little vulnerable here, I'm just going to be super honest, was not just getting up and doing my Bible study and my prayer time, but what I ended up falling a victim to was getting up, and by the time I got to my prayer room, I had my phone in my hand and I started answering messages and I started scrolling, and I was sitting actually in my chair ready to do my Bible study, and an hour had gone by because I used the phone. And when I talk about that, I have so many people kind of look kind of guilty, and they're like, yeah, I do the same thing. So I had to figure out, where am I actually letting time be robbed on my schedule, and where can I improve? Because I was definitely lacking a little bit of that time span in the morning. So I decided on January 1st, my new commitment to myself was I will absolutely not touch my phone, not even look at it, until I've done my prayer, Bible time, and my reading for the day and journaling. And then, if there's time before my first appointment, I will look at my phone. Started doing that. The best way to actually accomplish a goal or a new habit is share it with somebody, be accountable, and write it down. And so what I started using my planner for, if you look over here, I write down Bible plus prayer. And then I'm also on a really big commitment of not eating any added sugar. So that's a huge commitment of my day. I do at least 30 minutes of reading in my field. Okay, so if you want to become an expert at your craft, whatever it is, you should absolutely read 30 minutes materials in that field. So if you want to become a cook, you should be reading about successful cooks, right? If you want to become the best financial consultant out there, you should be reading financial books. If you want to become a great coach, well, you should be reading about coaches. You don't become an expert just because you're doing an activity. You need to be a never-ending sponge of learning from people that have been so gracious and willing to share their craft in books, right? There's no excuse for any of us not to become an expert, but we have to actually make sure we do that. Well, there's been so many times that I said, okay, I'm gonna sit down and read this book. Last year, I failed terribly. And so I decided I'm done with making excuses. It's going to go on my planner every day. And so 30 minutes of reading. And that is before I touch my phone, okay? So touching the phone becomes an award, right, for doing the right activity. By the way, as we're filming, it is the last week of January, and I'm actually on my 5th book right now in 1 month by just making that commitment, you guys, okay? So it will sharpen your skill set, it will sharpen who you are, but you got to put that in your planner, that you see it, and I'll tell you with the colors in a minute why I do that. The next thing is audiobook. Again, I drive a lot. Most people that work for themselves, they go and drive to appointments, and it's so easy to get lost in just things that we don't necessarily need, right? You can listen to the terrible news out there, right? The things that do not encourage us. You can listen to music, which is great. I mean, I think music is great. But what if you decided for 1 year, you're not going to do anything, at least the only thing you want to do while you're driving is listen to audiobooks. How many books could you possibly get through in that 1 year? So that's my challenge for myself this year. No music in the car. The only thing I'm going to listen to is audiobooks. Yesterday I was traveling and I actually got 3 hours in. I mean, on the plane I would usually watch a movie, and I'm like, nope, that's not on my challenge for this year. I'm gonna listen to my audiobook. And I was so empowered by the time I got off the plane. I'm like, yes, I did it, right? And every time you have one of these little wins, it makes you believe a little bit more that you absolutely can. And then I need to walk and move my body 30 minutes a day. So I'm not a gym rat. I don't enjoy going to the gym, but I really enjoy walking. That is really good for me and my brain. And so 30 minutes minimum. Like if you do more, great, but minimum is 30 minutes. So I write this down when the week starts, okay? It's literally written down. So this is my current week right here. And you can see we're on Thursday. I was up this morning and I already did my Bible study, my prayer, and then the rest will happen. When I complete the task, I get I get my little yellow marker out, and I actually give myself a yellow highlighter on that. Now, if I don't complete the task, I use orange. Why do I do that? Well, here's the thing. If you just write it down and it just remains black and white and you never go back and actually do the accountability, It's really easy not to do it. I promise you that, because I've definitely been there. So what happens is, I was here last week, right? And I looked at it, I missed that one day of audiobook, and here I didn't walk. And I looked at my week, because I also teach the principle of actually going through and evaluating your week. And I thought, okay, what happened here and what happened here, and what do I need to do better? I mean, it's a pretty good week. I'm not going to be too hard on myself, but I'm looking forward to that one week where I'm going to have a 100% score. So I'm challenging myself, right? Again, you can choose your own colors, but that just really makes a difference. And here's one thing that will happen. If you write everything down you want to accomplish, and you're honest with yourself, and you now go back and let's say like 60-70% is orange, right? And you just mark it all off. You have to do something that's really important. Don't just quit, but ask yourself a couple of questions. The first question is, do I really want to do this? Like, do I really want to accomplish what I'm trying to do? If the answer is yes, the next question is, why am I not doing it? What's missing? Am I getting up too late, right? Do I need more accountability? A great accountability that I'm going to share with you that works extremely well is accountability with a little bit of pain attached to it. So one accountability that worked really, really well for me and my 2 daughters when we started to get off sugar, this was years ago, we were in a little texting group. And at the end of the day, we had to give accountability, and we just had to say no sugar for the day. If you actually ate anything with added sugar, you owed the other 2 people $5 each, and they had to be deposited in our bank account. So there was a little pain attached to it, right? When I wanted to get rid of the habit of using my phone while driving, yep, I used to do that, guys. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one, but it really scared me. And there was an incident where it really got scary, and I was like, I have to stop. But in my brain, it was so hard to actually just do it. And I'm sure that you've experienced that. You want a new habit, you really want it, but then you don't follow through and you don't do it, right? So I asked my daughter if she would hold me accountable. And I said, every time I use my phone, if my car is in motion, I owe you $10. I think I may have, in the total, this is now going on for years, sent her $50. I mean, like, I just don't do it. So because there was a pain attached to the accountability and building this new habit, you actually do it. So when you write this down, and let's say you're just not accomplishing, ask yourself, is this really important to me? Do I really want to do this? Or do I need to change my goal? Maybe it's not all that important, right? Then you make the adjustment. Up the accountability, create some pain factors to it, and then see what happens. Don't be so hard on yourself. You know, when you're trying to change something, it can take time. Be gentle with yourself, be gracious, but look for improvement, okay? So that's how I use my morning time. Why is that so important? If you don't invest into yourself, into your brain and into your heart, when you first start the day and you roll out of bed and you go right into action, I usually would call this a train wreck by noon. Okay? Because you honestly are not in a good place to meet with those clients, to face your children, to be a good spouse, all these things that have such high demands on yourself. It is very challenging to get through a day and feel good about yourself at the end of the day if everyone is tugging at you and the bucket is already empty, right? So think of it in the morning, you have to fill the bucket. And by the end of the day, you're probably going to run a little low, but knowing that the next day you're going to have a new filling, you can get through that, right? It's a day by day activity. So once you've accomplished that, and you need to decide what time is right for you, for me personally, it's between 5 and 6 a.m., depending on when my first appointment of the day starts. Once you start with that and you become good at it, it will become second nature to you. I promise you that, because again, I'm a product of what I'm teaching, not because that came easy to me, quite the opposite. I had to learn it. And the more I do it, it becomes now a second nature to who I am. The left side, again, it says daily habit, weekly focus, challenges. Those little lines are just not big enough for me, and that's why I have another book, and I'll share with you what I do with my other little book here on the side. But on the left side, I write out all of the contacts that I need to make that week. So if I make a new social media contact and I have a little conversation going on, instantly I take my pen. By the way, this is a great pen that is erasable. I love those pens. And it goes into my left side. what that does when I sit down at home in my office and I have my computer in front of me, I've got my iPad next to me, my planner is always in front of me, and then I've got my additional book to the right and my markers. I have everything that I need in my surrounding area right now to work effectively. Okay, I'm not just doing busy work, I'm being extremely focused and effective at what I do. All the names go in here on the left. Again, I have a color system. If that contact became a solid appointment, it gets a green marker. If it didn't get actually put into a solid appointment, and there's sometimes that I drip for 6 months with a person. I mean, seriously, that happens, right? You have to be patient. Then it gets an orange marker. And again, why do I do that? Because then I don't have to think so hard when the week is over what I need to do, because as I then move into the next week, those names get transferred from the left over here. And I do the same exact thing because now they've been moved over. The real big goal about that is that you don't forget anyone and you don't miss an opportunity to do follow-up. You guys, the fortune is in the follow-up, right? If you make a contact and that contact doesn't turn into a client, it's, I think, 3%, if you do the research, 3% of people actually buy from you, whatever that might be, with that very first touch. It takes 7 to 14 touches before someone actually wants to buy. I think it's in the 80% range. So there's a great study you can look up. But touching and following up is extremely important in any business that you do for yourself. So that is right there. Now, lately I've been extremely busy and I've made a lot more contacts. So what you might want to do is, if you fall into that place, is have a supplemental book. And so what I have right here is I write the names as I make the contacts. When I schedule them, they get a highlight, and then I have a little bit of a follow-up system when I send them follow-up fill-in sheets and setting appointments and so on and so forth. But you work through that yourself. But again, I can look at this very easy and see who didn't show up, and then guess what happens next? I have another to-do list, and then I have my next week. You can see that right there. Those are my Money 101s, my appointments, and I highlight the names of all the people that have committed to the appointment, okay? But again, if you're not as active and you're just starting out, this will be plenty of space for you to do that. Okay, next, go back to your pink, okay? When you start out your week, and I'm just gonna go to maybe a week that hasn't been so full yet. What I do is I look at my appointments with my family, my children, my grandchildren, my Sabbath, my morning time. The pink goes first. So you can see right here in the top, I block out all of my personal activity time. It's not even available for appointments. On my schedule that clients may have or team members, my availability doesn't start until 9 a.m. I used to make myself available all the time. And guess what? Whatever you make yourself available for, people will take advantage of that. So if they book you at 7 a.m., it's your fault. It's not their fault, right? You make yourself available. So I changed that and I blocked out what actually makes the most sense for me to make sure that I show up the best that I can show up for them. If you invest into yourself, you will be better for it. So check off all the times that you need for yourself. My rest day, I always check in with my kids as well. Do they need me to babysit? Is there something coming up? And you can see right here, I have to have my grandson overnight and all of that, right? Then I look at my connections that I need to make, and that is networking. If you're trying to build your business, I would highly encourage you to go out in your local community and network. And so I'm gonna go back to my other weeks, and you can see my blue stands for networking. I have a networking group that I run, and from that networking group, I always try to get at least 3 to 4 face-to-face appointments to have coffee with them, or tea. I drink tea. And so again, what do I do at those appointments? I'm not throwing up all over them with what I do. No, it's to get to know them. Ask a lot of questions, get to know them. At the very end of my appointment, usually it's about an hour, and I'm coming prepared with all kinds of questions. 9 out of 10 times, here's how it ends. Oh my gosh, all we've done is talk about me and I didn't even get to know what you do. And that's perfect. That's exactly what I want. Because here's how I end that appointment. I'm like, you know what? That's completely okay, because that was my goal, is to get to know you and learn a little bit more about you and your business and how I can help you. For you to get to know me a little bit better and what I do, I actually teach 2 free classes a week. Mondays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. It's called my Money 101 class. I'd love for you to come, take a look at it. That way you learn a little bit more about what I do. And if you know people that could use the benefits that I share, you can refer me based on what you have seen. You know what they say 100% of the time? Yes, absolutely, I will do that. I just gave them an hour of my time listening to them, right? Of course they're going to come. So I know if I do really well with my blue and I do my networking and I schedule at least 3 to 4 one-on-ones, I have automatically 3 to 4 new appointments coming to my actual class, okay? So if I don't see a lot of blue on my schedule, I know what I need to do. I gotta up my appointments with people in my community. The reason colors work is when I do a reflection of my week, I can see how balanced or how unbalanced I am, right? If it's all green, I have a problem. I'm working too much. I'm not spending enough time with my family. If it's all blue and not green, I'm having a lot of fun having coffee and tea time, but I'm not inviting potential clients to my Money 101. So these are all different things that you can do when you do a reflection of your week and you see colors. Orange is just basically what I do for like coaching, team coaching, anything to do with still work, but not income producing activity, okay? So if it's green, it's income producing activity. That is meeting with clients, scheduling appointments with clients, introducing them to what I do, or we do needs analysis appointment, we do application appointments. So income producing, I like green, kind of like the money, right? Orange, I'm still busy, I'm still working, but it is other things, coaching, training, whatnot. Okay, so then I have this rule to grow my business, and that is the power of 1. Scheduling at least 1 appointment a day. Now that is not a follow-up appointment, and that is not a needs analysis appointment or writing a policy. That appointment is a person that hasn't been introduced to what I do, and I now have invited them to come and learn about what I do. When you look right here at the very top, you see names and you see a little bit of a green highlighter there. That is the goal every single day, to schedule at least 1 appointment. When you do that, what happens is you actually run your business a lot more relaxed. Because if you have appointments coming in every day, and you schedule them every day, if somebody doesn't show or there's a reschedule, you're not going to have a freak out moment. But if you only have 2 or 4 appointments for the whole month, and let's say 2 of them don't show, now you're a little bit in a panic mode, right? Because like your business is not growing. But if you just focus on the power of 1 appointment a day, it flows. And so again, I write down the name, I highlight it, and in my brain, I get to check it off, activity done, and I move on to other things. So that's why you see those names up there with those highlights. All right, what else is really great about this particular planner is that it gives you a weekly reflection, okay? It's really powerful to go back through your week and reflect. What went well, what didn't go well, and what should I have done better? On the left side of the planner, it also gives you actually, let me show you one there's nothing written in, journaling, reflection, and creativity. So you can use that as well. I use this page actually for my weekly goal setting. So I have a certain amount of goals that I have for my policies that I want to close on. I set specific goals and I write them down. The more specific you can get, and I transfer from goals here to here and I track it. So what does this say? Big wins for the week. What happens is when you actually write things down, you can go back and say, what went really well? For example, on this week right here, I wrote down on my big win, like I had an almost perfect week for my morning routine. When I write that down, it does something in your body. Let me tell you what it does. It actually releases endorphins, okay? Highlighting things, checking things off. It's free drugs and it's legal. Okay? You don't need a stimulant. You don't need anything. You just got to do a list and actually follow through and check things off. And you're going to naturally feel empowered and happy and like, I can conquer the world, right? So it gives you that big wins. How will I improve? That's important too, you guys. That's how I actually went back on from my previous year that yes, I was getting up early and yes, I was picking up my Bible, but that was after an hour of being on social media. That did not feel good. So you can write how will you improve in there. Then it has, personal things that you want to work on this week, friends, family, work, relationships I'm looking forward to. So again, keeping that vision focused. Habits I'm focusing to develop. If you're struggling with certain habits, you can write that in there. And then projects that you need to work on. What you do, you fill this out in the beginning of the week, and then at the end of the week, what you do is you actually do what's called a reflection. That usually happens for me on Sunday. So I finish on Friday. I try to finish strong. I call it finishing Friday. On Friday, I start looking at all my appointments, and I like to go through and see what actually happened. Did I need to maybe reschedule something? Maybe I needed to do follow-up. Maybe someone didn't show. And if that happened, I put it right on my next week as a reminder. I don't like to leave my week at all without doing my finishing Friday, because then I catch things. How often has that happened to you, that you tried to remember something or you wanted to meet up with someone and it didn't happen, and now 3 weeks later, you're like, oh, dang it, I completely blew that, right? And it's a little awkward to come back and say, hey, I forgot you. So what happens is if you do finishing Friday, you can actually look at all the things that were supposed to take place and maybe didn't, and you can transfer it. Then on Sunday, I sit down and I take my week here and I start actually writing things down. What went really well? Where can I improve at? What do I want to focus on? What projects do I need to get done? All of those things are now written down. There's actually been a study done, and I can't give you the exact same numbers for all of that, but by just writing things down, goals, improvements, dreams, all these things, when they were written down, they said it was a really high percentage. I wish I would have actually looked it up before I filmed this with you guys. But the percentage of people actually achieving those things were so tremendously high in comparison to those that didn't write it down. There's a real connection that takes place between pen and paper. And I wonder if the electronic world has kind of taken that away from us. And maybe it's just time to get back and create that connection. When I write things down and I highlight things and I look at it, there is actually a very personal connection that takes place. And I'm connecting with my task. The other thing that I have is red. So if there's an important thing that didn't happen, I go back and I actually circle it, and it reminds me this is important, I need to take care of that. And it becomes part of my priority in my actual to-do list. So that is my process. I hope it wasn't too overwhelming. Like I said, I know by now that you've kind of seen it from the first time looking at it to now, it probably makes a lot more sense. And the breakdown of it. And just to recap really quick here at the end, be gentle on yourself. Don't expect massive results from the first time you try. My suggestion, and I really stick behind this suggestion, I don't believe it takes 21 days to form a habit. I really believe it's a year. And that might sound daunting, but what I would suggest you do, if you really want to create a system that works and that's simple and that goes with you wherever you go, give yourself 1 year. Give yourself 1 year of doing something different. Because if you do the same thing that you've always done and you expect different results, that is actually the definition of insanity. So if you want to improve, you want to have more time, you want to feel better about your business, and you want to make sure that when you spend time with your loved ones, you feel good about it, not guilty. And when you're working, you feel good about it, not feel guilty. This, in my opinion, is the perfect way to do it. Write it down, look at it, highlight it, reflect on it, and then every week get better at it. All right, you guys, this is it. I hope this was helpful.